Thought, obviously with the statement this morning and the roster move that we're eventually going to make with Odell, I thought it was important for me to spend a little bit of time with you guys this afternoon. I don't think anyone envisioned when the organization traded for Odell 3 years ago, that this would really be the resolution. It's unfortunate, but at the same time, there are just some situations in the NFL where things just don't quite work out. That being said, I do want to say that Odell, he's a good person who brought a special energy in the building. Developed a lot of really strong relationships with teammates, staff members, coaches, and we really do want all parties to kind of emerge from this successfully. But that being said, there are times in with business partnerships where things don't just work out, and that's where we are today. Those decisions are incredibly difficult, but at the end of the day, it's a decision that I felt was appropriate for our team. So with that, I'll open up for questions.
Andrew, last summer or this week, was there ever a realistic opportunity to trade him?
Yeah, realistically, you guys know I don't talk about trade transactions or anything like that in those settings. I'll keep those discussions private. Realistically, there are a lot of players that get discussed among teams. Very few of them actually get serious. But again, I'll keep all those discussions private between.
When did you know he was wanting out, Andrew?
Yeah, again, any discussion that I would have with player representation or something along those lines, those topics I'll keep internal.
When things go ahead.
You can't say if there's a trade request made, in the off season.
Yeah, I don't think that that's something that's really appropriate to discuss.
Well, when things started to go sideways, at least on social media on Tuesday, before the deadline, would you guys have been better off trading him before the deadline as opposed to cutting him like you are now?
Yeah, to be honest, Scott, I don't know that this really isn't about a video. It is about really a series of discussions. Really, certainly over the last week, but even spanning back longer than that. And at times I do think that there is a, whether you want to call it a level of frustration that exists that just really makes it difficult to have a productive reconciliation or reintroduction.
So when you're such a high profile, talented player, fans really have a hard time reconciling how on earth that can't work. Could you just, I understand there's things you don't want to reveal, but could you just kind of, in layman's terms, explain why this thing fell apart the way it did and why it didn't work out?
Yeah, I know that's always tough because the reality in these situations, there is some information that's probably not as appropriate to disclose, more publicly. I can tell you that, really everybody's put a ton of time and energy into it, and everybody's, disappointed that this is the outcome. But it is where we are. It just sometimes they don't work out, and we have to move forward and focus on Cincinnati.
Andrew, when you say it wasn't the video, when did it become clear though that this was untenable? Because obviously you did play on Sunday.
Yeah, no, I think it is something that became clear to me really realistically in the past couple days. I think that's a fair question. So that's the answer.
Andrew, we know you were talking to his representatives, but did you actually get to talk to Odell in the last few days about any of this and try to just, straight to the source, work through it?
I did talk to Odell. Now again, the details of those conversations, they remain private. I can tell you the discussion, it was cordial and it was professional. But again, I'm not going to share what my conversation was with him in this setting.
Did you talk to current players about their feelings with Odell and if they would welcome back in the locker room?
Yeah, so to begin, have had discussions with some of our players, but the nature of this discussion isn't necessarily about making the decision. Ultimately, that's something that I felt was most appropriate for the organization after internal discussions with his reps, obviously discussions with Odell. But we certainly did have follow-up conversation with guys in the locker room.
Andrew, there's a lot of data now that Baker has just been better when either Odell's not been on the field or when he's been throwing the ball to somebody else. Are you interested to see, what Baker does going forward now that this is, in the past for you guys?
Yeah, again, to me, this isn't this really isn't like a Baker question. All I can say is I think Odell's a talented player. I think the offense functioned well with him. I think we've seen it function well when he hasn't necessarily been available, and we're focused on making sure that we can score as many points as possible for the rest of the season.
Have you completed the process of the separation, or is there still work that needs to be done with his representation?
There's still procedural elements that we have to work through. So that's what we're doing right now, and hopefully that'll be finalized in the next few days.
Before Tuesday, did you feel headed this way, or is this really the last 72 hours?
I'm sorry?
Before Tuesday, did you feel like it was headed this way, or is this really the last 72 hours?
I don't know that I could really put my finger in terms of exactly when I felt this way. Probably, realistically, it felt like it was potentially heading there, maybe at a little bit of a point earlier. But again, after enough discussions with, his reps internally and just thinking through things, I thought this was most
Are
appropriate.
you concerned that this could be somewhat divisive within the locker room, considering the social media activity that did take place this week? Baker was thrown in the middle of it and, pretty much publicly criticized. Are you concerned about that being divisive and people taking Odell's side or being on Baker's side, stuff like that?
Daryl, I think we have a strong locker room full of a number of professionals, and I know that their focus is on beating the Cincinnati Bengals this Sunday. Speaking realistically, any decision like this, the reality of it is you're not necessarily going to get consensus anywhere. And I think people realize that and acknowledge that. But again, at the end of the day, some things don't work out. And my job is to make sure that I make the decisions that I think are in the best interest of the team.
Miles said today that he wasn't the first one who said that he was disappointed that the players weren't informed about what was going on, and just he felt this spiraled out of control. I mean, was there anything you wish you could have done differently?
No, it's a good question, Maura. I think the reality is it's always tough in these situations because I think number one, as you guys are learning, there are some details that aren't appropriate to be shared with with everyone. But I think even secondly, over the past couple of days, we were working through and working towards just the final resolution. So, being able to share everything or just the finality of it, it really would have been premature.
Andrew, along those lines, do you think that are you confident that everything was done from the Brown side of things to repair the relationship before this resolution was reached?
Yeah, again, I think there was a lot of time and energy spent really on all sides of this. And I think there are a number of considerations at play. And I think, again, this was the right decision at this point in time.
Andrew, off of that, was there motivation to get this done quickly? It could have maybe drug out, but just the best for everybody to go quick and get this over with?
Yeah, I honestly, I think the focus was trying to do it on the best way possible, the right way possible for all involved. Because it is a little bit of a complicated dynamic, and we're trying to work through that in the best manner possible.
How did you resolve the contract stuff, Andrew?
Yeah, I think you know me well enough. I don't talk about contracts and this type of thing in any regard.
Well, then can I ask you this, do you have a preference whether or not Odell is claimed off waivers or goes to free agency?
Yeah, again, I'm not going to talk about contracts. I would just tell you this, wherever Odell is, we're gonna face talented guys every week. So, the reality is, once all of that is finalized, we wish him success, and we're gonna focus on our next opponent.
Andrew, there were weeks where there was a concerted effort to get the ball to Jarvis. Why wasn't the same done with Odell? Why was he not a part of the offense when it seemed like he was a playmaker not being utilized?
Yeah, I guess I would push back a little bit on that notion. I think that really in the passing game in this system, it's designed to get the mismatch, and I think we have a number of skilled pass catchers, and from week to week to week, that can be a different player. I think the other element of it is, I do think our coaching staff was very focused on getting Odell involved. I think if you look at it, first 8 weeks of the season, he was our most targeted pass catcher, and he did it in two fewer games. Now that being said, being critical of ourselves, I think Kevin mentioned earlier in the week that hey, there were moments where he thought he could have done a better job of exploiting Odell's talents, but at the end of the day, you know, he was a big part of it, and you know, it may not have been as smooth as we all would have liked at certain points, but you know, I think the notion that you know, that he was, you know, ignored or anything along those lines, you know, certainly wasn't the case.
Over your tenure here, you've made this impactful culture change, and you don't want to see anything like this, obviously, derail that. What goes into making sure this is just maybe a speed bump and not something that can derail all the progress you guys have?
No, it's a great question, because these are always difficult, right? Because you know, there are real relationships, you know, that you know, have been formed over the past 3 years since Odell's been here. But look, these difficult decisions exist every year, and we try to be as empathetic as we can. We try to communicate as best we can, you know, with the appropriate information, and that's just something that we have to continue to work at every day.
Kind of along those lines, what was there an element to this, especially after Tuesday, of maybe trying to protect the culture you guys are building here and not having something like that happen to undermine it?
Do you mind? I'm sorry, I didn't quite
I
get.
guess kind of along the lines of the culture you're trying to build. Is there an element to this, especially after what happened on Tuesday, of maybe trying to protect that and forcing this
You know,
decision a little bit?
I guess, you know, probably we try to protect our culture daily. I don't know that I would make a great grand statement with this transaction. I just think the reality is it didn't work out, and that became apparent over the past couple of days, and thought it made sense to move on.
I guess when it comes to the communication aspect of this, following up on Marlo's question, when you have a situation like this, how do you view your responsibility to communicate to the other players that are here? How much of that is your responsibility?
Yeah, no, I think that does fall on us, you know, me and Kevin, and it's tough. I'll be honest, it's tough, and you know, I don't know that, you know, we ever get it 100% right. Just to be candid, but at the same time, it's a difficult and sometimes nuanced situation where, look, there are pieces of information, there are discussions, there are conversations that just aren't appropriate to share in a broader context. It's not fair to all the parties involved, and so you do your best to try and balance it, to share enough where people can understand enough of the why, to at least look at it from multiple perspectives. You know, but there always is going to be an element of that. You know, people will want more or hope for more that, unfortunately, you just can't always share.